want to greet you all. Thank you all for tuning in. We want to greet you all with the blessings of, health, healing, strength, life, love, and light.
You know.
We got a nice show tonight set up for you all called Reason and Rhyme. Relationships, Reason and Rhyme.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get into the thrust of that. And it came about, she asked me one day, what's the reason and purpose for our relationship? So that's a great question. And it just prompted us to think about, what relationships are for. Why do we get into relationships, And I know early on in my life, speaking for me, relationships really didn't have a purpose other than just, to just be in a relationship, just to have personal security, pleasure, but really no purpose to it, right? And so one thing that we have found, well, can you say the same thing? What, the purpose of your relationships? Do you have like purpose and meaning in your relationships?
No, I would say that I had some chemistry, but we gonna talk about that, and we know that chemistry can kind of lead us into a pitfall.
Right.
So,
right.
And I could say that I had lessons in my relationships, but I can't say that I had, purpose.
Real purpose.
Yeah.
I get it. So we're gonna talk about that a little bit, and just get into it. But this is something that through the course of my experiences with relationships, really finding myself first and foremost, and getting into what my personal purpose is, and finding that connection with someone, which is huge. And we'll talk about that as well. In terms of, what the purpose of relationships are. So I'm waiting for baby to go live.
My little slow shield. All right.
There we go.
Okay. Oh, I do got 3, 2, 1, babe. I thought it just said go. All right. I know.
I'm not that half. Look, this is me. It's me.
Look, see, I'm coming.
You fade.
Yeah.
We good
right.
though.
Okay.
So
I gotta be close to you.
all good. We have some things we want to cover tonight. Our topics of discussion are we're going to be dealing with purpose. We're going to be dealing with vision, and we're going to be dealing with affinity. And then we're going to also talk about some connections that they have with some other principles that we're going to touch on. So this is going to be, pretty insightful, we hope. Keeps on fading you out, man. Keeps on fading you out. That's deep.
Can't phase me.
No doubt.
Maybe I'm like, it's sensing my shortness or something.
I don't know. I'm going to turn it to you more.
Okay.
There we go. No, damn, you done faded completely. This is crazy. Casper. We doing Zoom too, so we on Zoom. We're recording on Zoom because we want to put this on the YouTube, as well. But we want to just go live and be candid with you all and just show you all how our chemistry and our other dynamics are. We'll get into that a little bit. But so one thing that we want to talk about is purpose, and what we found out is purpose is dealing with, for us, what we've discovered is to really promote the kingdom of heaven. We want to really encourage individuals to also understand the importance of healing, the purpose of healing in your life, and that is essential as relates to finding that person that you can build with, because you got to have an alignment in that, so those things allow for purpose to be magnified, and to be even more fruitful. And so purpose has to be defined, and that was one of the key thrusts that we have talked about in our relationship here, is dealing with the kingdom. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And also, like, purpose, it comes from the creator, right? So if you're not in alignment with the spirit, with the creator, then it will be hard for you to be able to detect that pure connection with an individual, because you're not in obedience, and obedience is definitely a requirement,
right?
And part of that purpose,
right? And that's something that we really labored in with prayer. We wanted to make sure that there was purpose there, that there was an alignment in our goals and our visions, our values even. And so with purpose, what we do, we look at Genesis 1:26 and verse 27, and that really gives humanity an overarching purpose. This is something we got to understand as human beings. We have an overarching purpose. And so we really try to promote that to many individuals. And so when we look at Genesis chapter 1, we want to greet the people who just came in. Brother Kathar, shalom alaikum to you, Aki. I know you're observing Yom Kippur, so Cox and Mayat to you. To everyone else watching, peace and power to you as well. But we're talking about purpose in terms of relationships, and we're looking at this from the paradigm of creation, right? The prototype of humanity. And so when we look at relationships, it says, Elohim said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the ground. So Elohim created man in his own image. In the image of Elohim created he him. Male and female created he them. And that is so important. There's power in that unison of male and female, you know, to the degree where that unity is what truly allows the presence of Yah to be made manifest. When man and woman are united. That's how Yah created us. This is why it says this is not good for man to be alone, because going back to the beginnings of creation of humanity, man and woman were meant to be united as one. And so this is that one flesh, that one mind, that one spirit.
Absolutely. And in that dominion, it just spoke to me, because that dominion also means having dominion in your relationships. And it's a balance in that dominion, but to really understand what that looks like, because a lot of times people go into relationships and don't even have boundaries, and not realizing that we have dominion in that. So in part of that, knowing your dominion is also part of knowing your purpose, because if you don't know that, then how are you going to have dominion over something? It begins to create that dominion over you instead of you having dominion over it.
And to take that a step further, that requires you to first have dominion over yourself. And that's where that healing comes into it, because I know in my past there were times I didn't even trust myself. You know, and that's something that she and I were talking about a while ago. You can ask people, do you trust me? Do you trust me? Well, the question really should be, do you trust yourself? Because that's where you really find that you can trust others, and you can actually be trustworthy, and others will trust you. You only have to ask that question anymore, because you gained the trust of yourself, for which I know for, you know, some years in my past, I didn't have that. And it just caused me to find myself in compromising situations time and time again. But all praise to the Most High, you know, that conviction, it gets you. You just have to take time to set yourself aside and heal, and not bounce from relationship to relationship. You know what I'm saying? There is a singleness, even in relationships, that is required for you to maintain and establish that dominion. And it comes from you going through that process as an individual first.
And I think that's something that we talked about too, well, as far as keeping our individuality established, because a lot of people do think that when you get into a relationship, you lose your individuality. But again, it also comes with balance as well. So I think that's another time for another subject. I won't get back into it, too deep into it, but yeah, that's important.
Powerful. So purpose, you know, again, goes back to the beginnings of creation, and the way that Yah created us was to find that balance in that man and in that woman. And that's when, even when you read scriptures, that's when man and woman are made complete. They're fulfilled that way. Rarely shall I say fulfilled. You have to be complete first within yourself. But the fulfillment of that completion comes about through that union of man and woman as Ish and Isha are husband and wife. So the purpose is about finding that oneness, okay, and reflecting the image of Yah, reigning over that dominion, reigning over creation, and then being fruitful and multiplying.
Which, babe, would you kind of touch on being fruitful and multiplying? Because a lot of times we think that it's just, you know, spreading seed, having babies, and that's not what the reproduction means.
In its fullness.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have emotional, fruitful and multiplying. You know, you have to be able to be like positive and bear the right fruit in that, right? You have to spiritually do that and create disciples, create in your family, in your community. You know, you have to make Yah's image that much more pronounced. And then materially even. There's a blessing that Yah promises his children, that they would be prosperous. And so there's, you know, a blessing of being fruitful and multiplying with your resources as well. So it covers the whole spectrum. It really does.
And I think a lot of times, like reflection is important. And again, that's a major part of purpose. And what happens is a lot of times we avoid that reflection. And who's that Paul that says, self-examine yourself. But a lot of times we miss that part. And it comes from us not wanting to spend time with ourselves because it reflects our image back at us. And a lot of times we don't want to deal with that. And so the question is that if you don't want to deal with yourself, then what makes you think someone is going to want to deal with you? So you have to deal with yourself first. And sometimes it hurts. But the thing about it is that if you don't deal with yourself, then you're going to continue to hurt individuals. Oh man, look at that. You're going to continue to hurt individuals that you engage in these relationships. And so you have to take that time to reflect with yourself. And trust me, blessings, Cameron, good to see you. But the thing about it is that that reflection is going to hurt, but it's also pure and it's essential. You know, it's like going even to go get a facial. Sometimes that facial hurts and it brings black heads to the surface of the face, but it cleans out all of that junk. And that's part of reflection that you have to really deal with in being in purpose. Would you say?
Undeniably. And we know that old adage, hurt people hurt people.
Oh yeah.
But what's even more beautiful is heal people heal people.
Absolutely.
And when you get into a relationship, you get to see where you are in that relationship. If you're healed or if you're broken. Because if you just get triggered, you just, you know, snap. And then you're going to hurt somebody. And that's not what we need. But if you're healed, you will know how to deal with your triggers. You know how to even respond with gentleness and with love and with, you know, compassion and understanding that, you know, that person may not have meant that at all, but it's just dealing with those triggers and that baggage.
Purpose helps identify. Babe, Cameron says, blessings, foundation. I'm living that. Amen. Growth. Yes.
Crucial.
Very crucial.
That growth is everything.
Ooh. And it don't always feel good.
It doesn't. And that's a part of being fruitful and multiplying. You know, growth is being fruitful when you're growing. And sometimes you got to prune.
Oh, yeah.
You got to cut to prune. You grow, you know. So, man, thank you for that, Brother Cameron, no doubt. So that's a part of purpose. What we found next is important is to have vision, right? You got to have a vision to allow the purpose to become manifest, right? And what we have found is that there is a transparency that must be present for that vision to, or I would even say a translucency, right? To be a light bearer that will allow for that vision to be much more clear. Because if you're in the darkness, you can't see, right? You can be transparent, but you may be in the dark, right? But if you're translucent, now you're bearing light. And now you can see the path for your purpose to manifest. And so this goes to Genesis chapter 2 in verse 25. And it says, and they were both naked, man and woman, Adam and Hawa, her Hebrew name, but Eve, we know her as Eve. And they were both naked, the man and his woman, and were not ashamed. Right? So these are the plans, the aspirations, and presenting the thoughts, the naked emotions, the naked goals, you know, the naked values, the naked challenges that we even have in order to chart the course for the purpose to be manifest. So this is important to have that vision, but we have to be like translucent with one another. You know, this is my area where I struggle. This is the area where I'm strong, right? And you have to bring that to the relationship and let, you know, your partner know we can do this, but, you know, it may take me a little longer to get in this area, but it's going to happen because we're going to work to make this happen. And that's what we were in the garden for, to work, to keep, and to bear that fruit.
And I think that's something that a lot of individuals struggle with, especially if you haven't healed, because we come in with this baggage that if I open up, you're going to hurt me, or, you know, I don't feel comfortable. Well, I got trust issues. Well, because you're still dealing with that and you haven't healed from that, that's going to cause conflict. So it's going to be a problem with you being translucent because you're still hiding some things that you've not reflected.
Right.
You've not, you know, surfaced those things.
Yeah, undeniably. Expose it. You know, be honest. You know, that's a part of being naked and unashamed is honesty. You know, a lot of times we want to present ourselves in a relationship more than what we are. And then when that light does come on and the person sees this is who you are, they're like, you know what? You fronted. You done told the whole story. So we got to be honest about who we are. You know what I'm saying? And I can definitely say that's something that we've done from jump. You know, we've definitely let each other know this is where I'm strong, this is where I'm not, this is who I've been, this is who I'm becoming, this is who I am right now. Do you accept it?
And it's not been comfortable. It's not.
Always, no. It's been real though.
It has.
It's been real.
And it makes you appreciate, you know, the individual more too when you can be like that, you know. I think it sheds a lot of appreciation on the relationship as a whole. And then it also allows for the door of reciprocity to be there because now you're exchanging, right? That it creates also a balance.
Yeah.
Hi, Alice. I like that. You're gonna lose to win, definitely. 2 buildings, congratulations. And we also need someone to pour into you. Yes, not take away. Notice what's toxic. Wisdom. There you go. Absolutely. Yes.
And that pouring into is so important, but it has to be reciprocal. You know, we don't want to be in a parasitic, one-sided relationship. We want to be in a symbiotic type of relationship where we're benefiting off of one another. We're feeding each other and we're growing together. And a lot of times, I know there have been relationships that I've been in that's been kind of one-sided, you know, and it may have been me at the time, you know, sucking blood, so to speak, you know. So, you know, we have to make sure that we're giving. And that's what love is all about. You give. Love is giving. Love is at times even making sacrifices. But they have to be calculated. They have to be, you know, calculated risks that you make that you know you're not going to lose yourself.
ROIs.
Return on investment. You got to have a return. You know, that's that reciprocity. Those dynamics are essential. It's indeed, Brother Cameron, both ways. It has to go both ways with wisdom, undeniably. And that's a very key component.
Absolutely.
So vision, again, being translucent, naked and unashamed, you know, presenting things in honesty, and so you can project that path of purpose to be made manifest more. And then lastly, in terms of the first aspect of it is affinity. You got to have that affinity. You got to have that oneness. Scripture talks about Adam knew his wife. He knew her, right? And that's something that I know it blew my mind. It's blown my mind in how connected I've been with she in terms of just being like on that same frequency. Like that's been crazy. Even today, like, you know, I'll just send a text message, how you feeling, babe? Your head okay? You know, she was dealing with a little, you know, discomfort. She's like, wow, like, how'd you know? I'm just checking on her, and I just, you know, you got to be sensitive enough to feel another individual. Because I know for me, I've been so selfish. I'm an only child biologically, and I could sympathize with people, but I couldn't really empathize all the time, right? But now I'm being able to empathize and feel what she is going through and to respond to that.
You be blessed too. I'm trying to also keep up with the comments. You be blessed too, Cameron.
Peace and power, bro.
Hi, Tanya. But yeah, when you were speaking on affinity, I think a lot of times that affinity is also interchanged, if I could say, with chemistry. And I think a lot of times that get confused because people continue to bond or even trauma bond with chemistry, right? And so I think that needs to really be defined because, like you said, affinity will create more of a one flesh, one mind, one spirit, where chemistry has all these other covalent bonds connected to it, creating that trauma, and that's not how it should be. Does that make sense?
Undeniably.
And so really being able to identify how chemistry versus affinity work. Because again, like affinity is oneness. So when you are under oneness, then that means that we are under the divine creation because Yah is one, right?
That's it.
And so chemistry, you have again all these different covalents attaching to each other, and if it's not balanced, then it can create a combustion.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that a little more.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Hi, love. Good to see you.
No doubt.
Thank you for your time.
No doubt, no doubt. Greetings,
So-
Tanya. So just picking up on affinity in terms of scripture-wise, it says in Genesis 2, verse 23, and the man said, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. Right? So this is about that oneness, that connection, that similarity. You know, you have to have, again, the opposites attract. To a degree, yes, in terms of like physiologically, but in terms of the components, the spiritual makeup and the values and the, you know, the goals and visions, those have to be in alignment. You can't have opposites in that because you will have a tragic experience. And that's something I can say I experienced early on in a marriage, that it was just two different values, and it just created a lot of imbalance, volatile imbalance, not just imbalance, volatile.
You know what I just heard? Affinity creates infinity. And so, like, and that's what we're looking for, right? It's an infinity, because that creates eternal life, and that's okay. I'm gonna be quiet.
Nah, that's real. Speak on it, girl. Speak on it, girl.
It's like, ooh, that was deep, because that kind of coincides with that. Also creates that infinity sign. When that affinity creates, it creates that bond of male and female.
Right. And you know, you saying that, what it makes me think of is patterns. Establishing the right patterns in the relationship. Once that affinity is present and you see that there are cycles, you see that there are flows, even algorithms in relationships that you establish, that allows for you to create patterns that will allow for you to know how to function in every circumstance, right? Because you've created a pattern. So you know how to respond to someone. You know, you train yourself and condition yourself in that relationship so that you know how to respond to the one that you love, you know, especially if you love them. If you're in love with someone, you'll be sensitive to that. And that affinity is what allows for you to feel the flesh of your flesh and the bone of your bone, right? And that's what that's about. So we're going to kind of pick it up with this here, because this connects. There's a connection to the purpose, to the vision, to the affinity. And we were talking about this. The connection deals with three other elements, and she spoke about chemistry, which is so important. And chemistry is the study of property and behavior of matter. So she was talking about, you may have chemistry with someone, but you got to really study the fullness of that particular chemical element that individual is composed of. Because just because y'all have chemistry may not be something that requires you to be in a relationship or just to have a physical experience. And in the society which we live, is promoting that. And I can say many of us have been there. I can say for myself, I've been there. You know, just because there was chemistry there, which did not mean for me to pursue anything further. It was just to have a connection, but not anything more. And so you got to study those elements that individuals are composed of. Take your time. You know that song that brother used to sing, "Take your time, young man." Anyway, so you know. What you say about chemistry, baby? Any more? Because you broke it down already. But Zeus speed.
No, I think that was it. I think that, like you said, you know, study the property. You know, I think chemistry is just something that needs its own segment, honestly, because that's what a lot of relationships, we move off of chemistry, and we don't really, again, understand the properties of chemistry, what that looks like. And as we know of the element chart, you know, it's a lot. Like, because even when you look at that element chart, it is a lot to know. It's a lot to know even about when you're creating chemistry with individuals. And that's, again, why it takes time, and it takes y'all being before you. It definitely takes obedience, and you can look at those things as properties of that chemistry. And if it don't align, hi, Auntie Erica, if it doesn't align out the gate, you should automatically be praying and be seeking the Most High, because a lot of times with chemistry is that we create attachments that should only be assignments. right? And so then again, you have these covalent bonds, bonding that should not have ever been connected in the first place. And so being very, careful with that.
Wow, soul ties. My goodness.
Because even chemistry can entangle the spirit, right? So then you mix yourself in these spirits and you like, oh, the spirit said, what spirit said?
What spirit?
What spirit did you bond to? What part of that chemistry? What turned? What does that make sense?
I mean, because you may get all caught up in the flesh and feel it, and that's the spirit that you in.
Yeah.
Lust.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's the real spirit. And you get caught up in that, that'll drown you. That'll drown you. Then you wake up, and you're like, what in the world just happened?
Yeah.
How did I get here?
And
so, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, as we know, disobedience leads to death. So that's part of that drowning part,
So vital. So vital. So that leads to compatibility, because the chemistry, the chemicals have to be compatible. And that's the ability to establish equilibrium, right? Just because you pour two solutions together doesn't mean that they're going to actually be compatible. They may be volatile and they may have a reaction that is not good. Deadly. Explosive, you know what I mean? And so you got to make sure that when you pour your solution into another vessel, that it's compatible, it's receptible, right? And it can sustain, not only establish, but sustain equilibrium.
Ooh, baby. Okay.
Yeah.
I just heard toxins, right? Toxic, right?
Yes.
And then when you see that happen, you see when it's not compatible, it creates toxicity, right? And so you see a lot of these toxic relationships, and even myself have been there, where that bond happens and it creates all this whole toxic environment. And so you see where it's a lot of arguments, where it becomes abusive, where it becomes unstable. So you got all of this stuff coming in, even, stress, anxiety, depression, relationships can even create, self-hate. Like, it's a lot of entanglement that happens when it's not compatible. And what happens is we can try to create compatibility, and it's going like this. Right. And it's going, and it's like, okay, now we're forcing a bond, again, a trauma bond, and we're forcing this to happen. Right. And it doesn't fit.
So you must have quit. Yep.
And like you said, that's where that soul tie come in at.
Yep. Because when you look at chemistry, those elements, you're looking at more spiritual components. When you deal with compatibility, now you're dealing with your personality. You're dealing with soul, right? Which leads to the last one, which is the suitability, right? Is it right and appropriate? Is this the right relationship, the righteous relationship for me to be in? Is this an appropriate relationship for me to be in, right? Because a lot of times we will compromise our personal value, right, to be in a relationship with someone that we know is not good for us. But because of the thrill or the rush or the attraction, they look good, you know what I'm saying? You pursue that. And it ends up in ruin and destitution all the time. Because we did not listen to the Spirit of the Most High, right? We didn't heed the signs and the warnings and the flags that were just littered all over the doggone field. And so we pursued recklessly, right? And ended up in a crash and burned. Right? And now you got to heal all over again. And I know for me, one of my bad traits was just relationship hopping. Beep, 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 beep. You know what I'm saying? Just to fill that void, as opposed to really take time to be with myself and learn myself and be in a relationship with myself and to be with myself. A lot of times say, I'm by myself. Okay, then that's your mentality. You're by yourself. But if you're with yourself, you got great company. If you know how to be great company with yourself. But we don't know how to do that a lot of times. That solo type of journey we got to go on is challenging. People don't like taking that journey, but that's so essential to find the quality relationship that you need, right? Because Scripture tells us it's not good for man to be alone, a woman to be alone. You need that balance. You need that reflection, and Yah created us to have that, because one of the oral traditions dealing with the Ark of the Covenant with the two cherubim on top of the lid was they were man and woman. Whenever Israel was united, especially in the homes of Israel, when the man and the woman in Israel were united, the angels would face each other. When Israel was divided, when the homes were divided, man and woman were getting, divorced, which was a huge problem in the first century during the times of Yeshua, the Messiah. The backs of those angels were against each other. They were facing away. And the presence of Yah was not established, because the presence of Yah, again, comes from what we know as the mystery of matrimony, right? Man and woman united. That's where you see the covenant. That's where you see the agreement, the union of heaven and earth, and that relationship right there.
I think I'm kind of stuck in the compatibility part. You said something about like the compromising. You breach, when they say you have a security breach, and that's like what I heard, because we do have to keep ourselves secure, because when we open ourselves up just to anything, we breach ourselves, we breach our identity, we breach our spirituality, we breach our emotions, we breach our identity. And so we have to be very careful that these relationships that we entangle ourselves in does not cause us to breach our kingdom identity, because we really have to keep that secure. And so being careful to not compromise yourself, and knowing who you are in the kingdom, because that's really important. And we see that, especially with my sisters, we compromise ourselves so much. And it just boils down to we compromise for lust. Hi, auntie. And so just being careful in that to make sure that you don't breach your security. And ask yourself, what does that mean? Like, what is my security? And I'm not talking about, materialistic things, because we have really been so set on just the material of things that we create our security in that. And we have to make sure that that's not what we're identifying. And I'm not against material things. I feel like in part of that, the Most High has given us, that, but let us not base our security up off of that alone.
Keep it all in perspective.
Absolutely.
No doubt. So yeah, what you think? Do you think that pretty much sums up just the brief of what we wanted to present tonight?
I think so. I think that brought some rhyme and reason and rhyme.
Some reason and rhyme to the relationships. Yeah, that's what we wanted to do. So man, man and woman, we hope you all enjoyed what we were presenting tonight. We're going to be doing this weekly Tuesdays at 7 p.m. So just for a little half hour, a little chop session, and we will have some more master classes eventually as we develop those things. And we want to definitely encourage you all to support us. Subscribe to B&Z Presents ICU. We got a page. You can check us out there. We got Royal Long, which is our page as well. You can support us individually. We have our own podcast as well. I have a podcast called Shifting Paradigms. It comes on every first and third Monday on KUAW. You can do that on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all kinds of outlets. From 6 to 7 p.m. Central Time. What you got, babe?
I got Whoa Group Therapy, and it's just where we get together and we heal, really seeking healing for ourselves from the crown of our head to the soles of our feet, and where we gather to actually help our sisters heal as well. So, into we got teas, we got herbs. Most important, I think, like y'all really should get on this tea, because I think really healing ourselves and making sure that we're getting those properties, because it did command us in Genesis, to get them herbs. And I ain't talking about the ganja smoke. Okay, man.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, definitely. So I think it's a lot, but y'all definitely follow us and yeah.
Just look out, because we got a lot coming for you all, as we just seek to serve the Most High and serve our beloved family, our beloved friends, and to just provide you all with our insights and our experiences, in the spirit and in truth. We're going to challenge y'all, because we challenging ourselves. We definitely going to push for this birth of this higher consciousness, because that's what it's about. You know, we want to make sure that we're looking to repair this earth, but it starts with repairing ourselves. You know, healing is our push, first and foremost, particularly the melanated relationships. We want to make sure that our people are whole, and the man and the woman in our healing is so important, you know. So we just got to make sure we're creating new patterns, we're creating new paradigms, and we're loving on each other. You know, that's the power to overcome everything. Love heals all, you know. And then we just start working and keep working.
Bringing the kingdom to earth.
There you go.
And don't be scared to share this. I know y'all done went up y'all
Yeah.
timeline and y'all done shared all kind of stuff today. Please make sure y'all show us some love and support and hit the share button. Thank you.
No doubt. And subscribe and share. Thank
Absolutely.
you all. No doubt. But I'm B.
I'm C.
And we gonna rock with y'all next week.